All right, so we got some breaking news here. This is gonna be a bit of a different format for our show today because things are happening. So I am gonna break down some thoughts I have on this right now, and then I am gonna put a poll up on my social media so we can talk about it together. This report comes from TSN reporter Mark Masters, who says that there's been some rumblings that the Toronto Maple Leafs are interested in acquiring Bruins forward Trent Frederic. Now, I'm sure a lot of you guys know Frederic's story. They've been tied to players like they've explored players like Patrick Kane and Max Pacioretty in the past, but these are all offensive guys. Usually, divisional rivals are not keen on helping each other out. So the idea that the Bruins would trade a player like this to the Leafs is quite interesting. And maybe this is not actually happening. Maybe it has just sort of put out there as bait to see what the Leafs would be willing to give up for this type of player. I'm sure you guys remember the 2004 Eastern Conference Finals. There's no guarantee that he's going to continue to improve, but I think he's at an age where you would hope that he does. He's not the flashiest player. He's not going to put up 70 points, but he's not meant to do that. He plays a different role. Okay, in a way, it would be really fitting to bring a player like this to Toronto. He's got the ties to the sea. He played junior hockey here. There's always been this sort of connection, and maybe this is where he blossoms into a star, because I think he is the type of player that fans here would embrace. They would love him because he's not afraid to get his nose dirty. He's not afraid to play in the tough areas, and maybe that would translate into him having a better year. The best way that I can describe what happened to the Lightning in that series is they got outgrunted. They got out physicaled. He's missed time in each of the last 3 seasons, but if he's healthy, I think he would be a great addition to this hockey team, and it would signal a major shift in identity. And I think it would be exciting. It would be fun to watch. And I think it would definitely give them a better chance of winning. And at the end of the day, that's the reason why they lost. I want to hear yours. Please vote in the poll. Let me know what you think. Are the Maple Leafs in win now mode? Is this a player that they should go after? Is this a type of player that they should prioritize? And ultimately, are they going to do it? Should they do it? We'll talk about it on tonight's show. I'll see you guys then. Bye. That is not to say that Toronto would be able to beat a team like Boston or Carolina or Tampa if they made that type of move. What it would do is it would increase their chances. It would give them a better identity. It would give them a better makeup. It would give them a player who's not only useful during the regular season, but in the playoffs as well. But we know that Toronto has assets. They've got cap space. They've got a bunch of draft picks. So maybe the Bruins are gauging what it would take to pry a player like this away. And yes, Bertuzzi does bring some physicality, but primarily these are skill guys. If you look at the bottom 6, I think they re-gone. Now I have some nice pieces like Cale Jarnkrok and David Kempf in the middle. I think Nick Robertson is a player who can make an impact. Sam Lafferty is physical, but outside of those guys, I'm not sure what they're going to do. And I know a lot of people have their doubts about Max Domi. I do think he's a capable player. He's got a lot of energy, but he's never really blossomed into the player that a lot of people thought he would be. I think bringing in a player like this gives you that sort of security blanket. You know that in big games you can turn to him. He's gonna deliver. And I think that's something that the Leafs haven't had in recent years. And it looks like this year, the priority for the Leafs is not to add more flash, but to add more grit and identity. And if you look at the teams that were able to knock them off. The Panthers and the Lightning, both teams that had really good physical presences. In particular, remember the Lightning series, and obviously Toronto was decimated by injuries on the blue line, but also in the forward group. And you just felt that the Lightning always had that extra gear. They were stronger on the puck. They were harder to knock off the puck. They had more guys who were willing to block shots. You look at guys like Ross Colton and Yanni Gourde and Pat Maroon. They just seem to be in the right place at the right time all the time. And that's the kind of player that you want. And I think that Frederic would bring that element. He's got ties to the area. He played junior hockey for the powerhouse program at Boston University. How much do you trust Brad Treliving and the Toronto Maple Leafs front office? Do you want them to go after a player like this? We saw them sign Ryan Reeves, bring in Max Domi last year. It seemed like they were trending in this direction, but this would be a whole other step. Like, this is not a rental. Frederic is signed for another year, and then after that, he becomes a restricted free agent. So this would be a long-term thing, and he's only 25 years old. So again, I'm curious to hear your thoughts. A lot of people thought he would end up in Toronto, and he did try out for Team Canada in the World Junior Championships back in 2019, but he didn't make the team. Instead, he went back to Boston, where he's played the last 4 seasons with the Bruins. So he's a smallish left wing, under 6 feet tall, but strong, physical, plays a heavy game. He won 53% of his face-offs last year. He scored 18 goals and added 22 assists for 40 points. Those are career highs. He averaged just under 30 minutes a game. He's got a big shot. He kills penalties. He throws devastating body checks and gets under the opponent's skin. He fights. He blocks shots. He works hard. He hustles. He's the prototypical modern day grinder. And so what is interesting about this is that these are the types of players that the Toronto Maple Leafs have UNT prioritized in the past. I do want to think anyone would deny that they've gone through a bit of a rebuild here in the past couple years with a real commitment to analytics and drafting and developing skill players. And they still have those core players with Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, William Nylander. But I think we all recognize that they need to surround those guys with different personnel. They need to find a different identity. And this move would symbolize a drastic departure from what they've done in the past. It seems like the Boston Bruins are open to trading him. So I just wanted to put that poll up so we can talk about it. Okay. And I think that's interesting, because we have seen the Leafs explore a bunch of names in the past. The other thing I want to mention is the rivalry factor. And if you take a look at the roster in Toronto, I think it's pretty obvious that they need a player like this. If you look at last year's playoffs, one of the criticisms leveled against the Leafs was that they weren't hard enough to play against. The other element is that these are the types of players that you want in your lineup when the stakes are at their highest. There is gonna be some risk because there is no guarantee that he is gonna continue to progress. Obviously, there's gonna be some concerns about his health, so those are my thoughts.